As many of you know, my time in the field of abuse and neglect spans 55 years. From the first case I saw with Henry Kempe on December 1st, 1968, to the present. That 55 years includes a 25-year period in the middle in which I was in the dean's office and only peripherally involved. In 1990, 6 years after Henry passed away, I was chairing the U.S. Advisory Board on Child Abuse and Neglect, and our board unanimously felt that the child protection system in the U.S. in 1990 was a national emergency. 34 years later, it was my sense that we were stuck and had made little or no progress in protecting abused children, nor were we effectively treating their families. To see whether I was just passing through a dour period in the 80th year of my life, I decided to talk with my colleagues around the country to see whether they agreed or disagreed with my view that we had not accomplished what Henry would have wanted to see 60 years after he brought the battered child to our attention. And so I've been on the road and have interviewed 36 colleagues all over the United States and 2 in Ontario. And I have 6 more interviews in Connecticut and Rhode Island coming up next month. The response from most when I asked the question, do you think that children, or when I asked the question, what have we accomplished, was silence, followed by, whoa, that's a really interesting question. 20% of those I interviewed immediately answered and gave an example of what they viewed as progress. Some of those are listed on this slide. Most of these are improvements in process. We are clearly examining children better in a more trauma-informed way. We are interviewing them better. We've recognized sports-related abuse and other issues. Some said we have a reduction in corporal punishment, although I'm not sure it's the child protection system that can take credit for what is a dramatic reduction in corporal punishment. In reality, I think we're not going to make progress unless the child welfare systems, law enforcement, and juvenile courts seriously start to evaluate the quality and outcomes of their practice. Until they do, the question will remain unanswerable. Our current system has problems at the local level, with national organizations, and with a government response. At the local level, there are thousands of 501c3 organizations that work to address the problem and raise money for funds for prevention or treatment in their own community. National organizations, and there are many of them, have a long history of not collaborating with each other and taking the usual national experts to put on their boards and go about it their own way. None work with each other or coordinate their efforts. And the government response with Congress and state legislatures are usually responding to a death, with a commission who, by the time they issue their report, the crisis has passed, and then their recommendations are generally ignored. This slide demonstrates that it is not a new idea, but getting these thousands of organizations that work in the field to collaborate is a major challenge. As Henry said, when you're chronically fiscally hungry, it's hard to have good table manners. This slide shows the various national efforts with commissions and committees to address the issue of child fatalities. 95, 2016, 2024. Over this period of time, the number of children dying of abuse has been stuck at around 1,500 to 2,200 a year for the last 30 years. That's not progress. So if after 30 years, most of the really experienced professionals working in the field believe we haven't made any progress, maybe we need, thoughtfully, to start over. What now? How would we do that? Personally, I agree we need a do-over, but without the advocacy of more than just the professionals working in the field, I don't think it's likely to happen soon. The path to advocacy needs to be trodden by the millions of us who have experienced abuse, either personally or among our family and friends, and we need to follow the well-mapped path of advocacy that has made research, treatment, and prevention funded by the NIH a $50 billion effort that has ameliorated most of the diseases affecting children and adults over the past 50 years. We can do this.